Anne Sexton's poem, The Kiss. My mouth blooms like a cut. I've been wronged all year, tingling with slights. When I stand at the center of the rain, a cup of fire, my bones are hot stones. They will not walk to the altar of the fire lilies.
Hi, I'm Corrin. This podcast is called The Ache, an ode to the existential ache of being human, that still small-voice tugging inside every single one of us, prompting us to change, move, grow, become more of our authentic selves. This is conversations with people who dance with the ache.
I mean, I just was meditating with my mother, so I'm like, let's say a prayer. And
okay, yes, let's do it. I
mean, you know, I always start with aloha.
Aloha.
So, thank you, universe, for bringing Corrin and I to this session, and I just hope we are able to bring our highest and truest selves, and I just love you. Amen. That's my prayer.
I love you. Amen.
That is the voice of Lily Donoghue. Lily is an actress, an artist, and has a deep connection to the spiritual realms. She has this ability to tap in and channel messages, and it's absolutely been a life changer for me to get to engage with her in that way. She's also someone who has given me so much permission to just be deeper and bigger versions of myself. Whenever I've been around her, I feel such a light and a warmth from her. And yeah, that big fat permission slip to just be more me. Here's our conversation.
Yeah, it's funny that you say I'm so joyful, because I feel like you met me in a time of my life when I was so untethered and wild and brazen, but I wasn't always like that. So it's interesting that it's just funny when sometimes you say that, or people say like, yeah, you're so bold or whatever the hell. And I'm like, that's just, it's a wild thing to, have like a idea of yourself and then hear what other people think of you. So,
and you don't feel internally that you're a bold person. You feel something else.
Probably, yeah. And yeah. But I feel like now I'm getting there where I honestly try not to think of myself as much as I can. So when I get a feedback like that, I'm like, all right, interesting. And then, I just try to move
because
along.
At the end of the day, other people's perception is like always going to be filtered through their own projections and their own experience and how they take you in. So it's just one small fraction of you or who you are and how you show up in the world.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. But when I was growing up, I was not joyful. I wouldn't say I was joyful, or I was very shy. So
Shy, but you still became an actress, which I actually feel like a lot of actors are shy people.
Yeah.
There's plenty of actors that I know that are shy people and very introspective people.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great way to hide. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense for me. I think that shy people go into the acting sphere.
This podcast is a huge fat excuse for me to get to know people in my life that I love very much, that I actually don't know certain origin stories or certain, experiences that they've had. We've never talked about that. I don't actually know how you got into it and how you decided you would do it.
The origin story of me pursuing this, I hate calling it a career, because my therapist always says to me, careers are to be reflected upon, not pursued. So that burns in my mind every time I say pursuing an acting career. So anyway, but yeah, I was always like, it's kind of that cliche classic thing where, I was always performing, I was always singing. I always loved watching movies when I was super little. Like my mom would show me things that I was probably too young to see, but my mom also loved movies. So I remember like one of my earliest memories is just watching The Wizard of Oz and then like ejecting the cassette tape, or I don't even know if they were cassette tapes, but the, you know, like the thick VHS tapes. Yeah, there we go. And I didn't know how to fast forward or anything. So I would just like eject it and put it back in and restart the whole movie and would watch The Wizard of Oz like hours and hours and hours. So that was always like very impressionable. And I would be like, I want to be Dorothy. So that was kind of, I guess, like the start of something creative. And then my mom would put me in kind of like acting, community theater, like plays, but I was an athlete growing up. Like I was a swimmer. And I was really good at swimming. So that was like my main thing, but I would always do like community theater or songs at home. But I never really took it seriously, or any of my family took it seriously. So until high school, I quit everything. I quit going to public school. I quit swimming. I quit rowing. I was really depressed and I was failing classes and I was homeschooling myself. And so, and I was really struggling. I know I've talked to you about like my struggle with depression and all that, but I was really in it. And what would help me was watching movies over and over. And then I would watch interviews of actors that did movies. And I would always feel like, oh, like these movies that I'm watching are talking about the things that I'm feeling. And I feel like these people have similar feelings that I'm having. And I just remember being like, oh, I should try to be an actor. Like, that sounds like the thing I should try to do. And totally just naive, had no idea. My parents thought it was absolutely ridiculous and like the weirdest thing to pursue. Not a real job, like the whole thing. So, but I would Google like, you know, how do I get an agent? I think I Googled like, how did Jennifer Lawrence get an agent? And so every time we would go to New York, I would hope that I would somehow be discovered. Like somebody would pull me from the sidewalk and be like, you've got like this thing, kid. And that never happened. So we though would go to like rinky dink like ads online, like, you know, John Hosey Whatsy's like garage agency. And then it's like kind of like really scary. And then I'm underage and then I have to leave right away. Or like I would go to these like casting calls, but then it's like pay $5,000 and we'll make you famous. Like, you know, I went all of these places with my mom, like as a teenager, just trying to get some sort of an agent. And then eventually like my mom ran into this woman at Costco that was friends with my still like first agent. And she's like the only good agent in the Southeast. And she was like, well, my best friend's an agent and she might meet your daughter. I don't know. And so then we met the friend and then I met the agent and then I did like some weird cold read with the agent and then I got signed and then I auditioned for like 3 years and didn't get anything. But, and I'm glossing over a lot of like tidbits, but I mean, we had no fucking idea what we were doing and I had no acting credits. And so then I was graduating high school, barely. And then my agent from Florida was like, so are you going to go to college? And I was like, nope, I am going to move to LA. Like, that's what I'm going to do. She was like, sweet God. And then she was like, well, I guess I'll try to find you an agent out there. And so she reached out to like 10 people. They all said no except one. And then I went there and I met them. And my first agent was Famata Kamara, who rocks. And she signed me with no credits and she let me sleep on her floor. And I did pilot season and would cry every day. and I was so terrified. And I remember looking out at like Van Nuys. Like I remember landing in Van Nuys and seeing like just a completely naked woman just bursting, like her boobs were out. And I was like, you know, I was 17 for my first pilot season. And I remember just sobbing. And I hadn't even I was so sheltered. And I was like, I hadn't dated anybody. I was just like this crazy person that moved. And I was sobbing every day going to these auditions and had no idea what I was doing. And that's kind of how it started. And then eventually I got parts.
You know,
but it was crazy.
It's so wild because I guess I didn't realize how similar our origin stories were.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really know yours that well.
I also quit high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I was not homeschooled, but basically because what I did was, I was homeschooled in middle school.
Yeah.
But in high school, I was homeschooled in middle school because my parents were worried that I was doing something bad, which I definitely did. Even though I was homeschooled, I was still sneaking out and meeting up with boys and smoking weed.
Oh, wow. That's so cool.
They couldn't stop. Listen, homeschool couldn't stop me.
Oh, I know. Trust me. I know. My homeschool was, though, like eating Raisin Bran and then watching Ellen at 4 p.m.
That's great. We were doing like medieval literature. I was like in a real homeschool co-op. My friend's mother was our teacher. We also learned from a book called Training Our Daughters to be Keepers of the Home.
Right.
You know, I was very Christian.
Did. I remember you telling me stuff like that. Yeah. And then what was the song that you danced to and then your parents were horrified? Remember you were...
Okay, no, that was the Whisper song. And that was because my mom found all of my LimeWire rips and like all of my, you're probably too young for
I'm not sure.
Yeah. It's like how we would like pirate stuff when we were young. Pirates Bay
cool.
and LimeWire.
Oh wait, I feel like I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's basically like
LimeWire.
Illegal, ripping, stealing music.
Yes.
For anyone listening, I'm just kidding. Anyway, so it was the Whisper song because my mom found my very religious mother found all of my music and was horrified by, hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear. You know?
That's what it was. Yeah. Hey, little mama, let me whisper in your ear.
Exactly. So and so I did, she made me listen to it. She was like, you have to listen to this, and started playing it. And what did I do? I got up and just started dancing because I was crying, and I was like, what else can I do but
hell yeah.
But dance to this because I was horrified, but I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna own it. Like, this is who I am. And that's actually funny enough, like it's a great reminder of like what the podcast is about, the ache, because I was always like very interested in sex and sexuality and like all of that stuff, but was raised very Christian and
insane, which makes you just hornier, I think. Like when you are told no, come on. Like,
but then you have shame to deal with, which is fun. You know, it ends up being
still a horny feeling as well.
Yes, it's very fun. But anyway, so I didn't realize that you almost didn't graduate high school because I almost didn't graduate. I moved out to LA before I had graduated. I was
no wonder we were like
I was still doing high school online, and I think I graduated a year or maybe 2 after I should have.
Yeah, I was right there. I remember they threatened to send me back to public school, and then my mom helped me finish high school, which is terrible. And like, I remember coming home because I would go to acting class at night. And I also I would stay and it was in Tampa, and I would go to acting class and get home at 4. And so then my mom, I would wake up and she'd be like plugging in the potato for my earth science class or some shit. So
your mom is the legend.
Yeah, my mom really is the legend. So, but yeah, I barely got out of high school. So
and then obviously the thing of, I think anyone that's moved to LA at a young age to pursue in the entertainment industry knows like what a shock it is. Like you said, you landed and there's a naked woman there, and you're just like, oh, crying
every day, like waking up and just, it was just I always say now, if I knew how terrifying it would be, I probably never would have done it. And the best way to do it, I think, is not knowing.
Yeah. Because if you know, you're not going to do it. Yeah.
No. Yeah.
It is grueling, and it's a lot of rejection, and it's a lot of like putting yourself out there. And the agent search, oh my God.
Well, I got lucky. You know, I had someone there. Like, Famata she was like also like an older sister. Like, I had a roof and I had somebody I could call, and like I would go to my agency and like, because I knew nobody. And so I would go to an audition and then just go straight to her work and just like sleep in her office, talk to her, be in her office. So I was like, you know, lucky but terrified. I only had this one lighthouse, and that was her. But the agent search, I didn't realize how lucky I was till I got older and then started changing teams, and then also new actors that were just trying to have an agent. And then I'm like, I don't know. It's so insane and so difficult to get a good representative and to even have the opportunity to read for a project. Like, it's so hard. So yeah, I don't know what that was like for you, but
it was hard. I mean, I didn't ever have, I think I was with, I can't even remember who, maybe Paradigm. I was with like some agency for, I literally can't even remember, for like a short period of time, but then they dropped me.
I think we should, I always say this, but I would love for Corrin to revive her acting career.
Hey, I loved acting. I miss it. I miss it. I love making films even more so. Yeah. And you know, like either one is like such a big lift. So you're just like focused. But listen, if anybody wants to put me in their movie, I'm happy.
I think we should get her back out there.
Thrilled to do it. Thrilled to do it. Okay, so you had this like horrifying, traumatic, but also beautiful experience of coming to Los Angeles, and then you did start getting some parts.
I did, like, you know, and I'm by no means like, you know, I'm not Margot Robbie, but coming from where I came from and being in Florida and driving to, you know, just having no person in that world. I think what was hard too was just like, I was so naive and I was learning about life at the same time while trying to complete like this dream. And that was so jarring. And I mean, I don't know how child stars do it, because I was coming of age. So, but it was still so tough. But I remember like I did a full year and I didn't even get any callbacks. And then I think I read for something in the Southeast, and it was for a show that was ending. And I did like a few guest spots. And then I started like doing guest spots on like Grey's Anatomy or the GOLDBERGS. And so I started to get like my SAG card. And then I just kept auditioning, but I was also struggling so much still with like extreme emotion and anxiety and like getting sick before auditions and like just making it my whole, like if I had one audition for the week, it would just dominate. It was dominating my mind, body, and soul. And then I like was falling in love with a person, and that was also extremely dominating. So I would just leave LA and like go to him, and
he was in Florida,
and he was in Florida. And so, but there was also like something about falling in love, like changed the way I was reading for parts. And obviously, because life experience, I think, directly correlates to whatever craft or whatever art you're creating. So I had this whole other, and I was like having sex for the first time. So it was just like this whole other state of being. And then I booked like the biggest job I got, which was a pilot for Hulu. And then I met like my friends and started to have real community, and then started to understand what it would be like to be a lead. And then I felt like that's when I got signed by like a really huge agency And it was really fast, but I was 20 years old. And then my only other jobs were like 3 guest stars on something. And so
and that was working during this time? Like, you didn't have a job because you were like 18,
I was, no, I was fully just acting, and I was supporting myself by it. So
that's awesome. I worked at Olive Garden.
Yeah.
When I was 18, 19.
Yeah. Like, I mean, now I've experienced nannying, which is a whole other ache.
A whole other ache.
And taking care of children. But yeah, no, I was a full-blown like lucky duck, and I didn't know how lucky I was, or, you know, I was having a really weird ache during that time. And I didn't have the life experience to deal with what was happening, because so much was happening in that relationship. And then when I was filming, and then all of a sudden, like, you're in your bedroom, like in Florida, like laying there wondering if you're gonna be able to work or like be in this like a capacity that only few dream about. And then like literally 4 months later, I was like on the Fox lot working on like a $20 million pilot as a lead. And I was just, it was just such a mind fuck, but like it was so much fun. And I was working with people my age. I was meeting other actors, and I was like, was that it? Like, I remember thinking and looking at my cast being like, is this it? Like, we made it? Like, somehow we, that was it? Like, that was the struggle? It wasn't that hard. And then now I'm like, oh, fuck. Like, if I look back like 8 years ago now.
Yeah.
So
I remember talking to an actor on a show that I was working. I won't say what show or anything, but like on a show I was working crew ICing.
Yeah.
And he was like, do you know how hard I've worked to get here? And she was probably 21 and like had been in, this was her first like guest star. And I was just like, in my head, I was like, oh, fuck.
Girl, you got a long way. Yeah.
If you have any idea what's coming down the pipe.
Yeah. It's so insane. It's just such a trip. And I think that's what's like kind of weird about being in this industry, because I feel like there's so many people that are making it in their own way, but we only see like who's on Jimmy Fallon, and we're just like, oh, cool. Like there they are.
Like, there's people who make a full ass living from acting alone that you don't know their name.
Yeah.
And like they might be like a super prominent like voice actor in games, or like perhaps they do like guest stars, co-star, like a lot of those types of roles, and you're like, oh, that person, but like you never know their name, but they're making great money.
Yeah, you know? Or even like being able to have healthcare as an actor, like insane.
What's
What's it like? I mean, look, I have it till this fall, so you know it's always a gamble. But it's like, I remember my first agent would say to me, she'd be like, yeah, you know, if you can get healthcare, like you're really making it. And I was just like, what? Like, I want more than healthcare. Like, I want to be in the Hunger Games. So I had just such a weird, I'm just like, I just had such a weird expectation of what, I just don't think actors are, like, we all come into it thinking we're probably, like, nobody, I really believe nobody's pursuing this going like, I'm going to be like a semi-successful actor. Like, we all hope we're going to freaking do the whole damn thing. But it's like the trick of staying in it when it's not looking like that.
Yeah. I wonder sometimes if like people who have built their whole career, like who maybe came into it that way and then built their whole career another way, because there's obviously a lot of like downsides to being like a very well-known actor. Like, it has its upsides, but we know like it also has its downsides.
Yeah, I mean, I know you know people that are extremely visible to the public, and then I have people who I know that are also very visible to the public. And it's interesting to feel at times I've had the sun on me in some way, but then to be on projects where I've either been working with like very visible people, or to have friends that have crossed over into this visibility space. And it's so interesting to see them interact with it because, and I remember like, well, I mean, it's not a secret, but like when I did Grey's Anatomy, Ellen Pompeo directed me, and then her and I developed like this mentorship relationship. And I remember she told me, and I remember I would call her crying like all the time. And I remember crying about like my agents or something, like just something really stupid. But she was like, kid, if you can't handle this, like you are not ready for whatever's coming down if you actually make it. And I was like, I want to prove you wrong. Like, and I was so, but now seeing her go through stuff, or like my friends that have crossed over into like extremely famous circles or whatever, like seeing that I didn't believe, I really believe that money and fame will make you happy. I really thought that. Like, I thought it would solve a lot, but it weirdly just either, I think, depending on who you are, it's so isolating in a different way. So,
I mean, I've heard people refer to it as like an amplifier.
Yes.
Like they'll be like, oh, money and fame amplify what's inside of you.
Right.
And bring it to the forefront of your own psyche.
I believe that.
I've had limited success. I mean, I've had success by like any standard of the world, and the fact that like I can work in the full time in the film industry, but I experienced it on a small scale in myself, where I started making all this money from.
It ain't small. Let's not downplay the success.
Sure. Well, like making, a bunch of money from
totally
coordinating and working a lot, and like, well, for me, I don't know, it was a bunch of money for me coming from like no money.
I mean,
like,
but look, that's like
Washington.
Totally relative. Like when I was working consistently as an actor, and then I was somehow making money, I was like, I've never made this much money in my life.
Right.
Like.
Yeah. And for me, like, it didn't make me happy. In fact, I realized like how I was even more unhappy in a certain way, because I was like, I should be happy because I'm making money. And it solved, like, don't get me wrong, it was like a lubricant. Like, it
for sure.
more ease in my life.
It's nice to go to Orange Theory.
Like, it's for me, it was hot yoga,
I should have done hot yoga. Orange Theory was so intense.
I never did Orange Theory. I like my hot yoga. I like to
love
climb.
Hot yoga. Yeah,
I like lower intensity.
The hot sports.
Yes, the sexy sports.
The sexy.
But sports. So okay, my question to you about all of this is because you're talking about how much you went through, like emotionally, all these like things that were going on while you were pursuing acting. And was there anything where you, like a moment that you can pinpoint, or like a period of time that you can pinpoint where you started shifting that, or like
where I started doing what?
Shifting your like,
my Lord,
just crying every day and being in this like down. Not that there's anything wrong with crying.
No, I know. I mean, look, honestly, Corrin, it's been a lot, because it was a big, like, it's funny. And I know that, we're talking about money, which, could be boring, or, like boo-hoo, actress making money and so sad. But it took me a long time to find some sort of equilibrium. And honestly, the past 6 months, so from basically 20 to 27, it took that long for me to find some sort of shift where I was like, I mean, I moved out of LA. Like, I fully put the brakes on it after being there for, on and off, nearly 10 years. So it literally took me, that long. Because the other times, like, looking back at that time when I was like making money and then like going, and then in this wild relationship, and then I was at the mercy of what was happening around me. I had no sense of self. So it took me up until, the past freaking 6-8 months to be like, I'm pulling the plug. I'm pulling the plug to really figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And where are you now?
Okay. So but then I nannied, which I glossed over. So when COVID happened, I needed to find a job, a real job, God forbid. The princess had to go. Yeah. So I started nannying, which was, as you know, like almost wild experience. And then, so that was another unhealthy dynamic. And so then I pulled the plug. I got rid of my apartment. I went to Tahoe. I went to Northern California. And then a part of me knew I had to come home because whatever I was dealing with out there started here. So I did that. And I came home. I came back to Florida. And I basically locked myself away and was just grieving like so much stuff. I was grieving like just pain I didn't even know I was carrying, and trauma, honestly, I wasn't dealing with. And the more I went into that and the more I acknowledged that, the better I was getting. And I just kind of prioritized spirituality was huge. And it wasn't even a goal though. Like it wasn't a goal to pursue spirituality. It just sort of started to happen. And I didn't even really have any expectation of getting better. A part of me was like, I'm gonna just go to sleep forever. So, and I kind of did, but that's when I started to, I guess, stop crying every day. Was that the question? I don't even know.
The question was just like, if you did turn a corner with that, or, you know, where you were at in your journey, and you answered the question. So it sounds like it
took years and years and years.
I mean, that was it for me. I think I was depressed for 10 years.
Yeah.
And it was the exact same experience for me that you're talking about, which was me deciding to, rather than be like, oh, this is like just a chemical and totally. I don't want to, I'm not saying that this is true for everyone. This is just what was true for me. Yeah. Looking at it and just being like, oh, I must have a chemical imbalance, or I must have this problem, or this is, that's what I was doing for a long time. Or maybe I'm allergic to something, not eating right, or But for me, what it really was unaddressed emotional issues that I was unwilling to look at head on. And then when I started digging around in my psyche and being like, okay, I feel reactive when these things happen. Why is that? And just really forcing myself to look at it and sit with it. Things just, started, and I stopped drinking, but that helped.
Right. Oh, so funny.
That was a hard one.
I remember you said something to me once, like, nah, you're like me when I was drinking. And I remember being like, what? But I was so wild for a second.
Listen, I love being wild and drinking. I miss it so much, but my mental health suffered, a lot when I would drink alcohol. But I'm sensitive to it. I have friends like you or other friends that can drink it casually and it's okay. For me, it's just not casual and I don't have an off switch. So if I start drinking, I don't stop. So I will drink all night.
Yeah. I mean, the off switch is...
I haven't really tried since I feel more healed. Well, I guess I have. I've had a glass of wine here and there.
Yeah, but you notice, I remember, every time
I feel like shit. Yeah.
You're like, oh my Lord. So you're definitely super sensitive to it.
Yeah. But, and I become more sensitive because I don't drink it.
I think. I mean, at the same time, I'm like, it's poison. Every time I drink, I'm like, this is genuinely poison. There's no part of this that doctors are like, yeah, go for it.
So, what it is it's poisoning you, which is what's causing the effects.
It literally shuts down, parts of our brain. And my family, I come from a family of alcoholics. So I've done a lot of research. I'm like, yeah, this is so fucked. But c'est la vie, you know, here we are. Let's take a shot.
It's a big part of our culture. It's a big part of our culture. I have no judgment for people that drink. It's just it's just not for me. And it was a part of my journey that was strong, you know, of like me numbing. Like I just would drink because I didn't feel emotionally okay. And so I was chasing that feeling of like,
I mean, it literally shuts down. So, I mean, in a way, it's a coping thing. But I think what was interesting was that I was technically doing everything I should be doing, and I was still deteriorating. And right before I left LA, I mean, I was on, you know, I've been through a lot. Like my first relationship, I think, was coming out in a way that I was refusing to acknowledge. And because him and we hadn't spoken in almost 5 years at that point. So I was just like refusing to acknowledge that what I was also grappling with was from him. But I had gone to a bunch of trauma therapists about it. And I had gone to, you know, I was on Zoloft, and I still am. And like, you know, I was doing all the things that like you're supposed to do to get over. And I have a great therapist, but I was still struggling almost to the extent that I was in high school. Like, you know, I remember I had a friend come over to my apartment, and she was like, this is not okay. Like, you have half-built furniture, you've takeout everywhere. Like, this is an apartment of depression. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, this is just a busy apartment. So, but anyway, but when I came home, it was like I couldn't run away from what I wasn't acknowledging. And then spirituality came back into my life in a massive way that I also wasn't even pursuing. So isn't that the joke, you know?
The thing that you aren't focused on that then suddenly becomes like such a big part of it. A surprise. I mean, look, you're extremely gifted spiritually, and I think we should talk about that.
Okay.
And I think we should talk about your journey with that, because first of all, I'll just tell you, dear listener, that Lily Donoghue is a very gifted. Did you say mom?
Yeah.
Mom. Your mom. Hi, mom.
Hi, Mom.
What's your mom's name again?
Dawn.
Dawn. That's right. My other bestie, Dawn. Dawn. Dear listener, Lily Donoghue is a very gifted psychic. Or would you call it a psychic? Would you call yourself a medium? Like, what do you...
I don't know. Honestly, whatever works. Like, I mean, I almost like don't identify. So I'm like, whatever anybody wants to call it. But I can tap in. I just basically am like, I tap in, and I can talk to people that have passed, and I can see what may or may not happen to someone. So I don't.
She can.
Yeah. So, I guess you would call that a psychic and a medium.
Yeah, both, I guess, because I've heard someone describe it as like, mediumship is like where you tap into like people that have died, or like people from beyond, versus like psychic is like with spirit. But I've also heard people say the opposite, so I don't know.
Yeah.
All I know is my experience with you has been very positive, and you've had this incredible ability to read me, read people in my life, read situations in my life, and I've loved every single reading that I've ever had with you.
I'm glad.
Beautiful and informative, and it's been very helpful. But did you always have that ability? Like when you were a kid, was that something that you were aware of, or did it come later? So my mom is very spiritual. So she is not like, she wasn't like, we would always listen to like a lot of spirituality tapes, or like my mom would literally take Liam and I to psychics, or like different mediums, or like we would talk to channelers, or like, you know. And my mom, the way like we would talk about God or the other side was very spiritual. It wasn't super religious, but we were raised Irish Catholic. But now my parents
So it's funny, like my dad is very Irish Catholic, so, and still is, but he is fully open to the idea of like his child. Like he said something to me like, yeah, you used to come down, and I don't really remember, but I had a bedroom up at the top floor of our house in Connecticut, and our house was built like in the 1700s, but I guess I would come downstairs sometimes when I was like 5 or 6, and I would talk about like this girl. This is like, honestly sounds like a horror movie, but I would talk about this girl that would come in and out of the attic because my bedroom was attached to the attic. And so my dad was saying something to me like, yeah, you would talk about this girl that would come and sit on your bed all the time. And I am glad I don't remember that because it sounds so scary.
Yeah.
But, I think, and then, so my parents would bring up stuff like that. And then I do remember there was a night where I thought somebody was in the house, and like, I thought this woman was in the house and it wasn't, but I could see her. You know, and so there, I would have experiences, but I was so scared that I think, and then my mom would say something like, just say you want them to go away. And so I did for a really long time. And then my mom always stayed super spiritual. And like, if we were ever going through stuff, like she would, yes, I went to therapy, or yes, we would go to like professional help, but then we would always go to some spiritual healer. And so every time I went to a spiritual healer, they'd be like, you can tap in if you want, like you have this ability if you want. And I just always kind of thought it was bullshit, and I would roll my eyes or just think it's like, I was very jaded about it. Like I just was completely disinterested. I would think it was crap, or they're just saying that. Like I fully was like, fuck that. For a long time.
It's so funny because I've been to like obviously so many mediums and healers, and nobody's telling me that. Like, you know what I mean?
Really?
Like, so I'm like, yeah, no, because I think I have like the ability to channel. I've had an experience channeling, but I've never had experiences like you where I can like see things or see people or like tap into like I
guess though too, I was just like, well, what's me and what's, what am I really hearing? But honestly, like, and I know, some people might listen and think like, this is fucking nuts. And I'm like, I agree. Like I was fully like, and my twin is also like, maybe you're just doing self-induced schizophrenia. And I'm like, you know what, Liam? Like, fuck, maybe I am. But I've done enough readings now where you
hit things that are real that there's no way you could know. Like I know these stories. Like
like I've done a lot of readings now where I'm just kind of like, what helps me is just not attaching to having this like ability, and just being like, don't shoot the messenger. Like it's just what I'm getting. And and like tapping into people that, sometimes I feel like spirit will show me things that people haven't told anyone. And it's a real intimate thing. Like when I first started reading, I always felt like, oh my God, I just had sex with this person, or like, but it's been actually really cool. And there's not a part of me that regrets opening it up. So, and if anything, it makes me a better actor in a way. And it makes honestly sense, because I feel like acting or filmmaking is so, to get really wooey, but it's about letting yourself go and like tapping into energy. And but it really didn't start till I came back home, and I wasn't pursuing the ability or like really even thinking about it or seeing any psychics, like nothing. But yeah, when I really started meditating, I felt like it got stronger. But I think, that we would tap in before I moved home sometimes. We like discovered.
We would. But I do think you seem to get more, at least from my POV, my limited POV of your spiritual work, your work, psychic work, whatever we're going to call it. You started to get more of a system down, or more of like the way that you wanted to approach it? Like, I felt like you started getting more like of a command over it and being like, oh no, like I don't want to read in this way. Like I want it to be like, this time of day with my, in my sacred space. I don't want to be like doing it in the middle of the night, like after drinking or whatever. And, like, you just sort of seem to change your approach to it.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely from meditating. I mean, I also I had a lovely psychic that has passed. And so I just tried to kind of, I knew how he tapped in, and I kind of followed his system, and then I kind of developed my own. So yeah, it's been interesting to create boundaries, especially when, people around me in my life know that I can kind of do this thing. But it's funny, I feel like the other side, or spirituality, or the universe, I feel like nature even seeks balance and equilibrium. So it's weirdly way more orderly than I think. There's like this stigma about psychics or mediums, and I'm sure there really are some freaking quacks out there, which is also why I'm so wary to talk about it. But I do feel that spirit has an intrinsic integrity. So I've never been shown stuff I shouldn't see, or somebody's gonna die right now. I've never, and I ask, I'm I don't want to see that shit. So I've definitely developed somewhat of a boundary, and it's like a spiritual backbone that's helped me have a through line into all my other stuff. So,
and when you say spiritual backbone, do you mean it's helped you with strengthen yourself, your boundaries? Or
definitely, I feel like having this kind of it's almost like just an inner safety of knowing that there is something more to this whole thing, and it's not something I think any of us fully understand, but there is something that we are definitely all connected to. And as somebody who has been so jaded and a non-believer and super nihilistic, there's no meaning and this is all crap, to now really feel wait, there might be something else, it just gives me a natural, way more of an ease through life that has made my friendship stronger, my relationship stronger, my own sense of self stronger. So it's been interesting. And also, I've done readings where I've seen maybe too much and people are okay, let's stop the reading. And that's its own form of rejection. So it's, made my own sense of rejection with acting better. I'm just kind of all right, well,
I'm sure they both inform the other of
yeah, they do for sure.
Yeah, the spiritual rejection thing is complex. I've had experiences where, because I'm into astrology, different astrological forms.
Yep.
I've had experiences where people will be like, oh, read me my human design chart, and I'll start being okay, so here's your type. And I had one experience where this woman asked me to, I've told you the story I think, and then she just started crying. All I'm saying is oh, here's your profile, here's what it means, here's how your intuition works.
Yeah. I mean, you don't know what you might touch sometimes.
Yeah. She started sobbing and she was like, let's be done. And I was like, to this day, I have no idea what triggered her. Because obviously you're just, all I'm saying is oh, here's this type, here's your energetics might work. Or so imagine as a medium or a psychic.
Oh yeah.
It's even deeper because you're saying maybe oh, here's this thing that I'm seeing from the other side. And then they're please stop talking.
Oh my God. Well, yeah, I did tell you about this, but I had a friend introduce me to somebody who I also had never met this person. So it was the first time I read a complete stranger, and I could feel immediately she was so skeptical. And she was just doing the thing of read me, fuck it, let's see, kind of thing. And so I don't like doing readings like that, but I was you know what, YOLO, sure, let's do it. And so then I felt like a relative that passed was like immediately there and wanted to like talk. And then I usually read with my eyes closed, so I couldn't see that she was getting uncomfortable. And then I remember asking, like, which is kind of intense, but I remember asking like the relative, what can I show her? Or what can you show me that I can tell her it's you? Like that only she knows. So she knows it's there. And I remember telling her what it was. And then I opened my eyes and the girl was just like so done. She was just like, stop. I don't want to do this anymore. And I remember afterwards was like, that was really weird. I don't like it. And I find it rude. And it was so strange to deal with it because I was like, I didn't mean to be rude. Like I was just, but it was funny because she was critiquing me, but I was like, your grandma just showed me this. So I feel like, maybe I just peaked a little too hard or something. So, but that threw me off. Like I didn't read for a long time after that.
Of course, it's scary because someone's inviting you to do that and then you do what they're telling you, yeah, please do this. And then they are triggered because it's not something they want to deal with.
I was like, maybe I should stop doing this shit. Like, this is insane.
A classic projection situation. I had this, another friend of mine is a professional psychic. She's had a bunch of things like that happen over the years. So.
Yeah, but it was a good lesson because I was like, you know what? This isn't like a freaking party trick. Like, it's not a party trick. Like, I'm not too crazy about telling everybody, but, also I'm not attached to it to be so, I'm like, you can pick it up or ignore it or think I'm crazy or think, whatever. It's not about you believing me or believing it. It's
about how it serves you in your life and how you interact with it. Because at the end of the day, like I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know how you feel, but
I don't know how I feel about it, honestly. I think I'm still figuring out where it fits. So yeah, I definitely still think I'm figuring it out. But right now, what I do like about it is that when I do read, it's usually people that really want to be read. So, I've kind of maybe established that boundary. I never want to read people who don't want to be read.
Yeah, and that's great. That's great. And like you said, the spiritual backbone that it gives you to create boundaries in this area of your life, like I imagine is going to help you in other areas of your life too. I experienced that if I like, oh, I'm getting better at like being organized in this area, it ends up flowing into other areas of my life.
Yeah, definitely. It all relates.
I love it. I'm trying to think. Is there anything else we should touch on before we read your poem?
Like spirituality, I think just in general is about whatever gets you closest to a sense of home. And as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting others, like it could literally be like eating Play-Doh, and with that, the poem I chose to read was...
Okay, I love it. Okay.
And Sextons.
Let's settle in. Yeah, let's settle in. Yes, tell me the title too. It's going to go at the beginning with the serious.
Right. You should keep the Play-Doh. Anne Sexton's poem, The Kiss. My mouth blooms like a cut. I've been wronged all year, tingling with slights. When I stand at the center of the rain, a cup of fire, my bones are hot stones. They will not walk to the altar of the fire lilies.
I love it.
That's it. That's the poem I chose.
I've never heard that poem before.
Yeah, it's so cool. I've always loved it, and I've always read it. And
my mouth blooms like a cut.
Mm-hmm. I've been wronged all year, tingling with slights.
I know the feeling.
Yeah, I know. Same. Yeah, I know. It's like not a peaceful poem, but I was like,
please,
this is the ache. This is the ache.
Yes, I love that. I love it. I mean, life isn't fucking peaceful, man. It's a lot of like pain and turmoil mixed with joy and mixed with beautiful moments. Like, I don't know where we got this idea that it was supposed to be nice all the time.
I know. It's so not helpful. And that's another thing I struggle with too, because I'm like, we're always chasing peace and shit. But I'm like, I don't know. That's not realistic anymore. Like, we should just lean into the wound, lean into the cuts. Like, it's, and somehow have meaning with that. So I'm learning still.
Me too. Every day.
Thank God I have you with it.
I feel the exact same about you. I love you so much. Okay, I love you.
Thank you for listening to The Ache. This podcast is produced by myself, Corrin Evans, and Alexis Murphy. All the music you hear is original compositions by my friend Peter Colombo. All other pertinent information will be linked in the show notes, and thank you for listening.